Welcome everybody to Psychic Connection, Collaboration over Competition. Tonight we have Jeff Carpenter here with us. What an awesome man all the way around. I can't wait for you to meet him and have him talk about all his abilities. They are many, many. So Jeff, thank you for coming tonight. You are the owner of Dimensions Reiki, right?
Yeah, it's been several years now that I've been doing this. I'm sure we'll talk about how I got into it, but I will say thank you for the introduction. You know, sometimes it's nice to recognize and be recognized, and that's why I like what you're doing with this collaboration. Sometimes, even no matter where you are, you talk about this as business. Sometimes people get too stuck in how they want to compete.
Right.
When every networking event, every opportunity to then partner gives everybody an opportunity. So this is something that I really like, and I'm glad you're running with it.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's get right into it. And I can't wait to ask you the first question. Yes. How, in fact, did you get started and realize your psychic abilities?
I don't know. Did I ever actually get started? I feel like I was a little manipulated by the universe here and there. Honestly, I lost a bet. And it's still one of my favorite stories, but losing a bet on a basketball game, no less, that I was the 20-point favorite. So you can imagine that it took a lot for me to say, okay, let me get this straight. I'm going to bet you a bunch of dinners against going to a class of, wait, what's it called again? Reiki, something like that? Yeah, and they said, oh yeah, sure. And well, if those of you who recognize the idea that, and I really don't like this phrase because it bugs me that it's true, there are no accidents. I lost that game in the last 15 seconds, and I ended up in a class on energy healing. That's what Reiki is. I really can't say, and I can tell you honestly, Phyllis, we've been looking, my family's been looking, we have not found a single instance of me coming forward with any kind of intuition, sensitivity, until that class.
Wow.
I walked into that class, and I give you and many women a lot of credit because there's not a lot of men doing these things either. I know that it's something that I take for granted at times, but I was the only man in that class too.
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised.
So I didn't want to be there. I was the only man in the room. And within the first hour, I had my first psychic vision about the student sitting next to me.
Oh,
you can probably guess that they weren't a big fan of me after that. You didn't be here. I heard that all day long in this class. The beginning was clairvoyance. I know why I'm a clairvoyant, but I never had anything like this. And within the first hour, after, I guess, really the first meditation, I started to see things that I had never seen in my entire life. I mean, literally. And that was age, I think, 43. So the entire life, and by the way, you have to also understand, and I know you know this, but I come from a science background. I truly am a rocket scientist. So as an aerospace engineer, physics, chemistry, working on booster rockets, communication satellites, walking to a class like that and all of this stuff happening almost unexpectedly, I have to say it took me a while to figure out how to rationalize it, what was going on. But that's actually my approach today. I take science and combine it with spirituality because the entire basis is energy. So when we were talking in the class and people started looking around at why I was experiencing all these things, and maybe they weren't, I just started talking about science. They looked at me like I had three heads and they didn't understand it, and that's okay. My background in science really comes out in terms of explaining how spiritual energy and pretty much any energy works. So that beginning, and it was instantaneous. I was being asked around my office to do Reiki for people who are a bunch of computer guys. Asking me to, my favorite part though, was that in the office, I was asked, because someone saw me, I didn't know this, I was asked if I would cleanse a conference room of negative energy. And I looked at them and said, do you understand what you're asking me to do? Like, well, we saw you doing your thing. I mean, what thing? Oh, wait, you were looking at me? Ugh. I wanted that room clean only because I couldn't really stand some of those tax partners that I was dealing with. When it comes down to what I do with Reiki, my answer is, why not? I mean, if it was going to be a bad meeting, it's going to be a bad meeting. If I can change that by changing the energy in the room, the energy of the people, why not?
Right.
We had one of the best meetings ever. But I didn't know if someone was watching out the door through the window and then asked me to do it every single time.
Wow.
I know that the universe started to knock and I still wasn't answering because I ended up spending about 30% of my time in the office with Reiki and readings and remote Reiki on people's dogs or family members. And I'm looking around going, how does this entire building know that I do this stuff? It spread like wildfire.
Word spread.
So that was the beginning, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but the evolution for the past, I guess, about 6.5 years has been really almost a medieval fantasy novel.
Wow.
All the things that I do that have happened and all the validation. There's no reason why anyone watching can't just go try this. You have to, if you think about this as a journey, the journey part still means you take a step.
Definitely.
You go across town in 70 different paths, but you still have to start crossing.
Right. Yeah.
Pick something you like, pick something you're interested in.
Yeah.
If you're interested in anything spiritually, go sit in a class, go do some reading, go identify what it means to you, and you're going to find there's more to it than you know. And perhaps there's a reason why you like it, which comes down to me.
It comes down to you. So I find it so fascinating, and I think it might help people to realize, because I think a lot of people think, well, it's either science or it's, this intuition kind of stuff.
Right.
But you blend the two.
The blend is actually the word that everybody uses, energy.
Yes.
The spiritual side talks about higher vibrations. And for those of you who've gotten a reading, for example, we talk about, does that resonate with you? I laughed. In fact, I've done a work with my teacher, my mentor, and I've taught next to her. And every time she said the word resonate, I had the crowd, all the students laughing, because resonate is a science word. In a reading, it says, we tend to interpret that as being, do you understand? It's a little more than that. It's, does your energy overlap in tune with the energy that we're bringing in? That's resonance. That's a science vibration term. So even when we talk about spirituality and science, we have terms that go back and forth. I'd really like to see us looking to combine them more, because the central point is still the behavior of energy in the universe.
Okay, so a perfect segue is elaborate a little bit more on how the energy actually works when it comes to, souls and spirits.
Okay. There are known tests, by the way. There's known studies, and speaking scientifically, the body actually loses mass when a person passes away. And I'm not talking about waste. I'm literally talking about potentially half a pound, sometimes even up to a pound. If nothing is removed, only thing that goes is all the energy, all the electricity in the body, all the nerves, all the neurons in the brain. Where does it go? Well, if you're going to lose weight, you're going to lose mass. And if you're losing mass because energy and matter are direct related, that transformation of spirit simply goes faster. The energy in the body is, I'll say, limited to what it's doing inside the physical body. When it's time to cross over, when it's time to move on, the body stays. The physical energy changes. The electrical energy in the brain starts to speed up. It's no longer bound in the physical form. It vibrates faster. Here we are again talking about science of transformation. If energy cannot be created or destroyed, it transforms, and the transformation becomes a new frequency.
Okay, so wait, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about this, right? So when people say, oh, my lights are going out, or all by themselves, or the TV's going on, I didn't even turn it on, it seems like they communicate through energy. So explain that a little bit more.
The idea of energy, especially, and one of the biggest things about any spiritual energy, or even about energy in our own physical body, is electromagnetism. The electricity that creates a magnetic field. That's science. That's every wire in any building, every electrical flow, including from the brain down through the nerves, creates a magnetic field.
Okay.
Taking that the next step, if you're going to have an interruption of electricity, let's say, why wouldn't an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, that we do in the military be the same kind of thing that spiritually can happen? The changing of energy is how they interact. And sometimes you can have enough energy or enough solidity in a vibration that, just like wind, we feel it. We feel the pressure. Well, if you're going to have spirits roaming, we'll call it, then why wouldn't they be able to solidify their energy or vibrate slowly enough to make a force that acts just like any other kind of pressure?
Okay. Now, did you write a book about this?
Not about this, but I did start my discussion. My book is called Discovering Intention.
Okay.
It's really how the first 18 months of me going through this incredibly crazy transformation gave me some kind of sanity. I had to find the sane, and really what I came up with throughout the book as I was writing it is the idea that I'm a paradox. But we're all paradoxes. We have the paradox of saying, A, there's no reason why the science side and the spiritual side need to be different. That was a big struggle. That was a big struggle for me because for 43 years, I defined myself as a scientist. I still do. In fact, I'm moving from a spiritual scientist into a scientific spiritualist. I'm jumping in with both feet on the spiritual side to explain with science. But the second paradox, and this is what I really had to learn the hard way, is the fact that so many people in the spiritual realm like to feel they're being guided. And they like to feel that there's validation and messages. And there really are. They're all over the place if we're paying attention. That's how energy creates messages. For me, what I found is that my free will is the most important thing that I need. My free will. I wasn't going to listen to anybody. Well, you know how stubborn I am, Phyllis. I can be that way.
Really?
Until I realized, yeah, see, thank you for that doubt, I think.
Well, maybe a little.
Okay, thank you. Good. The interesting part of that self-discovery, though, was the fact that my free will is what's meant to be. So my mind, body, and spirit becoming one is exactly what I need for, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about some of the really challenging energy things I do. To commit, to put yourself out there, to put yourself heart and soul and body into something. That makes total sense, but you've got to commit to it. So why isn't that what's meant to be for my spiritual journey?
Okay. You know what?
It took me a while to figure that out too.
I would love for you to share a really interesting story, because we'll call you like a Ghostbuster too, right? Because you go to homes and you pick up on spirits, and some of the people definitely want the spirits to leave and things like that.
Oh, yes.
Can you tell us an interesting story or two?
Oh, yeah, I can. In fact, I'll talk about my first cleansing of a home.
Okay.
A good friend of mine. And I use the first one because you can imagine the scientific part of my mind walking into someone's house saying, yeah, sure, I'll help you get rid of a spirit. I don't know what I'm doing. And I didn't really bluff my way through, but I did take a lot of risk because I really wasn't sure.
Okay.
And it was absolutely obvious. I would sit down, and I've been to this person's house several times. I would sit down in the living room and talk with them and visit with them. And you would literally hear this, and it was a gentleman's spirit, running through the attic. Dunk, 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 dunk. You'd hear the steps creak as he came down and peeked around the stairway to look at me. And they're laughing, going, how does he know you? I don't know how he knows me, but he probably understands my energy is here because of what I put out there. It's like that moth to a flame thing. He's aware that I can perceive him, and I'm aware that he can perceive me. So I finally started the cleansing in the house, and I sort of draw all the energy up. I guide it up, so I cleanse from the bottom up to the top. So that I know eventually I'm going to end up in the attic. So I was up in the attic, and the family member was still down in the second floor because they didn't want to be up there in the attic with me.
Right.
If you can imagine standing on a beam going across the unfinished attic, having a conversation with a I guess I'll describe him as a big-nosed, ring of baldness
Right.
lawyer.
Lawyer.
I only know he was a lawyer because
Did
I
he?
started out by saying, can you please go? I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what was going to happen. And really, I was more concerned about what was going to happen to me.
Mhm.
I mean, I've never done this, and I can only imagine what it could be. And I'm very careful in those things. So I'm trying to placate him. I'm trying to be nice. I'm saying, will you please go? You understand the family here is very upset by you. And he's got his arms folded. Remember I said I'm a clairvoyant. So I'm literally standing there talking to this image of a person I see.
Right.
He's about 5'7", 5'8". That changed completely. I said, well, you know, your wife, because I could see them on the other side, your wife and your daughter are waiting for you. And suddenly he swells with anger. He's like 9 feet tall, literally. And remember, don't forget, the people are still downstairs.
Right.
So they're hearing only my side of the conversation.
Right.
And I finally say, wait a minute. I go from a little bit of fear to confusion. Wait, why did that upset you? Why am I talking about your family and now you're getting angry?
Mhm.
He gave me the best message of all. And I'm going to summarize it before I say it. When you think about spirits, if these are people, they're still people. They haven't exactly changed, especially the earthbounds that are still haunting. They haven't changed. They have the same motivations as we do. His message to me, his direct statement was, I didn't like them when they were here in life. Why do I want to go spend eternity with them? So I'm laughing. He finally decided to walk on his own.
Okay.
And the people downstairs started to hear the creaking of him walking. Like, what? I'm okay. I'm yelling down the doorway.
Mhm.
He goes on his own. And I closed the portal. The family loved it. People would come over the house and say the house feels so much better than it has in years.
Wow, that's amazing. Like we do. Okay. This is a little different going out there, but I think people might be interested to hear your take on, because you're a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
Do
Sure.
you feel that there are aliens out there?
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you that in what we do, if anyone looking for the spiritual work as well, looking to get in your spiritual journey, you have to keep an open mind. Because
Right.
just because you take a step, it doesn't mean you know where you're going. It just means you're taking a step in your path. I was not a big believer in alien visitations. I believe there's got to be other life in the universe. It can't just be
Right.
us. But the visitation part, the communication part, not so much. However,
Mhm.
when I talk about radio, I talk about us, people, as just giant radio receivers. We receive energy from everything around us,
Right.
even medical treatments, it's radiation, all that energy that's coming in.
Mhm.
Food is energy for us.
Right.
So if we can learn, and we can learn how to communicate at these higher frequencies of spiritual energy,
Mhm.
what's the big surprise? And this is the what if discussion. What's the big surprise if something else like extraterrestrials can communicate on those same channels? It starts to make you wonder. Now, I didn't really get into that until a friend of mine asked me to go and work with one of his friends from a UFO group. Now, you can imagine my, we'll just say, challenge at showing up for the UFO group. But I went afterwards and I sat down and they started describing things. Well, I completely tuned out what they were saying because I want, as a scientist, all that separate validation.
Right.
One of the things that started to really make me think more deeply about this is that there was absolutely an artificial pulse connecting to him. It was not a spiritual, it was a spiritual frequency.
Oh, wow.
But it's almost like saying there was a beat of 5 and 4 and 5 and 2. That's literally almost like you could imagine Morse code that has I almost call it man-made, but I don't think it was man-made. I think this was
Alien.
extraterrestrial. And when I blocked it, because I can work with energy, that's what the beauty of working as energy work too, is that it's not just how you receive it, it's also how you generate energy to stop it. I created this wall or this interference, best way to describe it, interference around the guy, and this pulse came to me. I started to see and feel the pulse on the top of my head.
Wow.
Well, I wasn't having any of that. That's totally different. You can go back and probe that guy all you want. Instead of stopping it, if you think of this as a cell phone call, I started to trace it. If
Ah,
I can do remote viewing, remote healing, all these things that come from
right.
Reiki, why can't I then trace energy back to a source?
Mhm.
I got out, I don't know, I almost got out of our galaxy, if you want to call it that, believe it or not, and
Right.
it stopped and went back over to him.
Hmm.
It's almost as if, just like we talk about spirits recognizing who can do this,
We can do
who
this.
can project their energy, why would it be any different that they can't detect us?
Right,
And
right.
finally, I started getting a message of the Pleiades galaxy. And they're looking at me like I have three heads saying, we were just talking about the gray aliens of the Pleiades.
Mhm.
And I told this guy all sorts of additional information, but then I decided to go research it myself.
Mhm.
If you've been in any kind of these spiritual circles for practice, especially medium circles where you're looking to speak with loved ones,
Right.
sometimes you get that person who brings in all the earthbound spirits.
Mhm.
Well, they're the only person that knows them. So when you're practicing, you want people to, to get confidence and hopefully identify who they're communicating with. If
Right.
nobody knows this ghost, what
Mhm.
good is it in
Right.
class?
Right.
Until you start to recognize that at the same frequencies are extraterrestrials. And
Mhm.
I'm saying, did anyone else understand? And I felt kind of silly asking, "I understand the aliens or extraterrestrial signals?" And look at me going, you know how many people I've kicked out of my circle for bringing their extraterrestrials in here? I said, wait, what? Like, well, why? It's a signal. It's still a frequency that people can perceive. So it starts to lend a lot of credibility to how do we detect them. We have entire giant satellite dishes listening for signals in space
Right.
at high frequencies. Isn't that what you and I do, Phyllis?
Yes. Yes.
High frequency, high vibration. So it's not outside of the realm. Obviously, I'd want more information about it, but it seems to be becoming more and more popular as a theory in a lot of the people in the business.
Do you think they're here to help us?
I
Like,
think if you want to go with the idea of a spirit and a human personality having 1,000 motivations,
mhm.
I think there's the same. I think you have motivations of selfishness all the way through motivations of generosity.
Right. Right. Well, do you have any words of advice for people who feel, wow, I'd like to get a little more involved in this, maybe
Sure.
find
Sure.
out if I have some abilities? What kind of advice would you give to them?
Well, I'll say one thing that I say to a lot of my students as I teach this stuff. I say, are you a spiritual being? There's very few people are going to say no, but they're going to say, well, yeah, obviously. It's like, well, then you have spiritual energy. That's the definition.
Right.
So if you want to know if you can do this stuff, the
Mhm.
harnessing of your spiritual energy is just another level. You harness your physical, you harness your emotional, you harness your spiritual.
Mhm.
The harnessing is the key. I would say look into a class. Look into a class on healing. Look into a class on psychic work, meditation,
Mhm.
something that's going to get you to the point of looking to manage your energy better.
Right.
That's always the key, taking the steps on your path for something you're interested in, because then you're not going to just, disappear if it doesn't work well.
Right.
But finding out what you like is going to be the first step. It's like a hobby. We do it all the time to figure out the types of things we want to pursue,
Right.
but allow yourself the opportunity to change and go in there thinking you're going to succeed. That's the intention part of this. If everything you do is sitting with intention of
Intention.
success and
Right.
completion,
Mhm.
you're going to be really surprised at what you experience, because that's the entire point. You're in there to have energy experiences. Just
Right.
because it's spiritual, give yourself the benefit of the doubt and say, why not?
Right. So be positive and be open-minded and be willing to believe. So why don't you tell the viewers briefly all of your services that you offer, and then
Okay.
just give is the best way to contact you through your website?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay, so just,
So, from a rocket scientist, as
right.
now a scientific spiritualist, I am a Reiki master teacher for not just performing Reiki, but also teaching new students to learn how to master their energy.
Mhm.
I am a practicing psychic and a spiritual medium. And my calling, which could take hours to discuss,
But we don't have hours.
I know, is the spirit rescue, spirit release, going into homes and helping people who have this spiritual interference that they don't want there.
Right.
Those services can be found at dimensionsreiki.com, as well as the spiritrescuer.com, all one word, to really look at how we want to help anyone identify what their skills are and really go in and have a good time with your spiritual energy to discover where you might go.
Excellent. Okay, so I highly recommend Jeff. I have used him many times, yes, to do readings and to clear my house and my space. And we've worked together on different events too.
Absolutely.
Highly, highly recommend him. So are you ready now? I have 2 questions from viewers.
All right, that sounds great.
Put out there and you can tune in and see what you get about them, okay?
Okay.
All right. So we have the first question from Louise. Louise wants to know, can my intuition influence the outcome of my dilemma?
It's interesting that question comes up a lot because how many people, I know Phyllis and I probably talk about this all the time with our clients, how many people are disregarding their intuition?
Right.
How many people are confusing imagination with intuition? So what is intuition? Intuition is like saying imagination times 5. When you get that, when you think that imagination, especially when your conscious mind is moving away from it and it comes back in 7, 8, 9 different forms, you better start listening.
Right.
Now, your intuition, if you think about CEOs, that's what they're there for. CEOs are successful because they have 5 different, let's say, proposals for multi-million-dollar contracts. They're all pretty much the same because everyone knows exactly what it's supposed to be. And they use their gut. They use their instinct, the intuition to choose. And the ones that are, let's say 75% right are the ones making billions of dollars. That's the simple answer, saying absolutely. But you want to go with your mind, your heart, and your gut to say, are there differences? Are there challenges? But the intuition helps you absorb and retrieve the energy of the dilemma from a different perspective. So absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. All right. So hopefully that helped Louise. I think you gave an excellent explanation. The second question I have comes from Zach, and he wants to know, are you always able to read a person? And if not, what does that mean?
Honestly, with some of the services I provide, especially the spirit rescue stuff, I recommend to people, if you're going to get into this kind of reading work, you take time off. You don't want to do it 24 hours a day. There was a time at which I could not walk into a restaurant without reading people. When all you see is this person's back pain and that person's divorce and this person's spiritual attachment, who wants that when all you want to do is eat your soup?
Right.
Think about what that means, because some people, I know a lot of people out there probably understand, they're empaths. This is the same kind of thing when you feel everybody around you.
Right.
But all you do is absorb energy. So there are going to be times when you don't want to read at all. You don't want that. In fact, you're a spiritual energy and a physical being. We don't necessarily have the capacity to do that 24 hours a day. But you can find ways. The techniques you get are some of the best ways to understand how you change your energy to do readings. And yeah, there's going to be a day where you're just not having a good day. And usually it's us. It's not usually the person. It's usually us going, I'm tired, or maybe I didn't sleep well. We have to be honest about that. Right. However, there are changes that we make in our own activities, performance, the reading part of it, that reset the connection, if you want to call it that. It's like hanging up the phone and calling again for a better connection. It's no different. Mm-hmm. So in most cases, you can find something successful with a person if you're willing to dig and change and be patient. And you got to trust yourself. You have to trust that you've been doing this and that it works. Right. So there are times when you're going to struggle, and it's something you have to be honest with yourself, but we struggle in everything. Sometimes we're just having a bad day no matter what we're doing. Right. Getting yourself comfortable and sitting in your own power with how you address that is going to really give you better readings. Right.
Oh, excellent. Excellent question. Alrighty, so, well, sorry to say our time is up, but I want to thank you very much, Jeff Carpenter, and please go to his website and check Jeff out. I highly recommend him. And I want our viewers to please, if they have questions, please go to my website, readingsbyphyllis.com, submit a question, and at the end of every show, we will have some questions that will be answered. So, submit yours. And I want to thank the viewers for listening in, and hopefully you'll tune in again. So I'd like to say God bless and take care.